First of all, it was the greatest trade deadline in my lifetime.
Oh, without a doubt.
In terms of, again, I don't have the greatest memory. I can't remember another deadline where so many amazing players were moved. I believe I saw the graphic, I think it was Saturday night on Fox Sports 1. They showed that 10 All-Stars moved. 10 All-Stars.
Crazy.
When you're checking Twitter, and it's Max Scherzer, oh, by the way, and Trey Turner, Jose Barrios, Richard Rodriguez, every good Cubs player.
Yeah, they all got moved.
Our guys Brian N. Rizzo, Javi Baez, Craig Kimbrell, Tepera, Chafin. Literally their entire team. There was the funny meme about this is Jason Hayward now, where he was throwing the Frisbee to himself. He had no more friends because, hey, it's Jason Hayward, and basically, hey, this is Patrick Wisdom's team now. But my point is, for a great trade deadline, which I think is fantastic for Major League Baseball, I was locked in to just refreshing Twitter constantly to seeing these deals. And then you saw the Cardinals deal for J. Happ, and it happened towards the end where you thought that was all they did. Because remember, Lester came after the buzzer. Now clearly they got it in before the deadline, but it wasn't reported until after.
Right.
So when I saw this amazing trade deadline, and I at first thought the Cardinals just got J. Happ, I thought to myself, that feels like they just made a deal to do a deal, to say they made a deal when everybody else was.
Right.
Then 30 minutes later, they also get John Lester. I understand the moves, and I'm going to tell you, I like the moves from this standpoint. They make sense. At this point, it does not help Johan Oviedo to struggle in the big leagues. Okay, now, I think there's a very good chance Happ and Lester may also struggle in the big leagues. Okay, but they're veterans. It is what it is. So Jake Woodford, who's okay, he had a couple decent starts, but he didn't over the weekend. So Jake Woodford and Johan Oviedo can now figure it out in the minors and not be exposed in the big leagues. I understand those moves. I don't think they're significant moves, but they make sense. But here's what ticks me off about those moves, and especially, in my opinion, the J. Happ move. Now, you can make a case that the Washington Nationals, they wanted to see how they were doing, right? They wanted to figure out, are we contenders? Okay, can we actually go for this? Knowing they were going to move guys like Scherzer was the big ticket guy, right?
Yeah.
But if you're the Nationals, you want to give yourself until almost July 30th to figure out, hey, are we going to keep Scherzer and Lester and Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber? They also sold everybody. But they wanted to take all the way up to the trade deadline to figure out, hey, can we make a run with this team and try to make it in the playoffs? Okay, and they got to the trade deadline. They looked at themselves in the standings and said, hey, it's time to sell. So I don't know if a player like Lester would have been available going back, let's say, June 1st-ish. I have a hard time believing that you couldn't have got J. Happ around June 1st-ish when you really needed him. And I brought up the standings from June 1st. And I bring that up because, remember, you had Miles Michaelis, who went down late May 22nd. You had Flaherty right there, end of May, beginning of June there. So in a 9-day period, you lose Michaelis, you lose Flaherty. You knew both were going to be significant. We're talking months. Remember, later that week, KK, early June, KK goes down for 10 days. Now, good for him. It was a 10-day stint, and he comes back. But are you telling me that back June-ish 1st, when the Minnesota Twins were 22-32 in last place in the Central, okay, they were 10.5 games back, but you couldn't have gotten a J. Happ type pitcher then? Okay, and you gave up John Gant. Maybe, do you have to give up a little more? I don't know. Is it your 12th ranked prospect? It ain't Nolan Gorman, right?
Right.
It ain't Matthew Liberatore. And so my point is, all offseason, when a lot of people, smarter than me, said the Cardinals needed starting pitching depth, because I didn't think they did, actually. I'm surprised that so many folks got injured, and then the underperformance of guys like Daniel Ponce de Leon. Remember, all these injuries.
They had a lot of in-house guys fail.
A lot of in-house guys. Even you could go to the bullpen. Some of these swing guys. Gant was good for a while, but then his whip and his walks finally caught up to him. So I'll be the first one to say I didn't think the Cardinals needed pitching depth in the offseason. I was wrong there. But they absolutely screamed for help right there in early June. And so a player like Jay Happ or any veteran guy, I don't care if his ERA is 5 or 6, which is that's what the ERAs of Lester and Happ are. But you needed these guys 2 months ago. And that's where I look at the Cardinals, and I look at the schedule here in August. And, man, you got the off day. It's Braves, Royals, Pirates, Royals. Okay, Brewers, right back to Pirates. I know the Tigers are playing a little better, but Tigers, Pirates, Reds. The Cardinals should be able to go off. I think they will in the month of August. And I'm not changing my opinion until I see it. I think the Cardinals are going to have a nice surge in August. They have all those games in September against the Brewers. We'll see what happens. I think the Cardinals are going to finish a couple 2, 3, 4 games above 500. But I think, and I know I've said this a million times, it's a broken record, but I think the hole they dug, especially in June-ish, when the Brewers surged and they flipped the standings by about 12 games, right? Because I'll go back to the standings here.
Yep.
I haven't brought up.
It was a huge swing.
Right. It was okay, and you could go back to May 22nd, which was the addition of Willie Adames. But on June 1st, the Cardinals are a half game out. They're 31-24. The Brewers are behind them 2.5 games out. And now look at the current standings. And I mean, so in that span of, late May to June, that flipped about 12 games. It flipped about 12 games from the Cardinals at one point being up about 4 games in the standings to being back 8, and it got to 10. Right? I mean, they were 10 games back in the standings. So I think Jay Happ will actually help. I think Lester will help. I think they'll be fine. And I think they'll be a little bit better than their ERAs are or were for the Twins and the Nationals. I'm going to go back to June when this team really floundered. That's when you needed a guy like Jay Happ.
Well, the one thing that stood out, and kind of what you alluded to for me, was you telling me, okay, you mentioned Lester, not available in June. There were other pitchers that were available in June that you could have went and got that would have cost you, I don't know, Dalvin Perez or some guy that's, not going to make your ball club down the road. You could have had Lane Thomas then. You could have given him away, if that's what you wanted to do. That's the frustrating side of this. When I looked at it, at first, I went, what the heck? What are these guys going to do? And then I realized something that we talked about on this show last week. They needed an arm to go in the rotation so Juan Oviedo doesn't become Anthony Young. Mm-hmm. That's where one of these guys is. That fills that spot. Another thing that it took me a moment to start thinking through was the Gant move. The Gant move is so they don't have to pay him for his arbitration hearing, because he's going to win his arbitration hearing. And you go, why? How? Because he has a 3.46 ERA right now. That's going to get him paid. And he's not that good. We're seeing 56 walks and 56 strikeouts right now, and his ERA will get him paid. 3.42 ERA, and he's got 14 starts. When they do arbitration, they're just going to go with numbers, and they're going to look at those numbers and go, well, yeah, he should get paid pretty good for that, right? He's, he didn't lose double-digit games, and started 14, and his 3.42 ERA. He's going to get paid, and he's not that good. So they move on from him. I think that was part of that. The other one was, we just need another arm. Just get me 2 months out of these guys. We'll never see him again. I don't even think Jay Happ will ever pitch again after this year. He's that awful right now. And we might, and Lester might do the same thing. He goes, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm done. So those are the things that stood out to me when I saw the Cardinal deals. And you're right. By standing there and not doing anything in June, by just not going and get another arm other than getting guys who aren't pitching in the major leagues, which they've done 6 times now since then, that's what's going to cost them. Because if they would have done something to just keep them close to within 4 games, 6 games, they'd have a chance right now. They don't have a chance at all right now.
And I don't think they have a chance at all in the division.
No.
Right now, 9.5 back. And remember, the Reds are ahead of them. However, to be fair, you look at the second wild card, you're 6.5 back, and you take a look at the Padres, who were in on all these starters. Remember, the initial report from Ken Rosenthal was a deal is being finalized for Max Scherzer.
Yep.
And the Padres, despite it seems like trying to be in on everybody, did not go out there and address their biggest need, which was starting pitching. Now that they made a couple other deals here and there, you also have Fernando Tatis Jr. headed to the injured list. So if I'm the Cardinals, I'm looking at a Padres team. I'm only 6.5 back. And I read you guys the August schedule. I bet you the Cardinals go off in August. I really do. I think they're going to win almost every single one of these series, at least take 2 out of 3, and they're going to get close. So maybe if San Diego drops out, right? If they collapse a bit and the Cardinals surge, can the Cardinals really be in the mix for the second wild card? I think they can be. But still, you bring J. Happ 2 months ago. This team is probably, and not just J. Happ, but just even Wade LeBlanc 2 weeks earlier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Wade LeBlanc has been a godsend. It's funny because now for years the Cardinals never had any lefties. It was always Jaime Garcia, and now the entire team is 36 to 38-year-old lefties, which is fantastic. I think it's great. Seriously. And all these guys, they really seem like Cardinals. You listen to the interview with I was watching the Zoom of J. Happ, and then I was watching some of the interview of John Lester with reporters at Busch, and both of them feel like Cardinals. I know it's hard to say that about Lester because you think of the 2013 World Series, and you think of him as a Cub, but then you look at John Lester and just who he is, the way he talks. He looks like he was born to be a St. Louis Cardinal.
The way he goes about his business, I get that.
Just like old school, soft-spoken, little country.
Little country, yeah. No, there's some truth in that. It's just, I just sigh because it's like, wow, you couldn't have done that same move 60 days ago? Come on. That's the most frustrating thing. And the response of, well, they kept asking for Nolan Gorman. No, yeah, well, then you'd go, no, you can't have Nolan Gorman, but I got this group here. Which of this group would you like? You got to go knock on that door, and you got to press that a little more.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm being realistic. If you were able to swap J. Happ for John Gant, okay, a couple months ago, you knew John Gant's peripheral numbers. You knew that even though the ERA looked really good, we all knew the whip was always around 1.4, 1.5. He was walking the world. You knew, we called him Harry Houdini for a long time. That's great. We had fun with it. And he was the best 5-inning pitcher in baseball for about 2 months. Every outing was 5 innings, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts, 5 walks. But he got through it. But you also know, we know this, baseball fans in St. Louis are smart. You cannot get away with that for a long time. Right? And the same with Alex Reyes. Alex Reyes is fantastic. But as great as he is, as great as his stuff is, he also has big-time swing and miss stuff, so he can get out of his own jams easier when you can miss bats. But a guy like that also, if you consistently walk guys and you consistently have traffic, eventually you're going to blow a few saves. And he's been awesome, don't get me wrong. But my overall point is, if you consistently walk guys, you consistently have traffic, you can only pull rabbits out of your hat so long before it ends up biting you. And so John Gant, you're telling me you couldn't have had John Gant, and I don't know, not Nolan Gorman, but your 12th prospect in the organization, that doesn't get that type of deal done when you really needed starting pitching help, was right there in early June.
I think it would have gotten something done. You could have gotten something from somebody, somewhere. There's no doubt about that. Tyler Anderson got moved. He could have filled the spot here. That wouldn't have costed Nolan Gorman. You would have had him 2 months earlier. The whole thing just doesn't. I don't want to say the word smell right, but it just didn't set right when they go, oh, they asked for Nolan Gorman, and they asked, they asked for him, but that's always the response. You go, no, you don't get them, but you can go here, here, and here, and that's how deals can get done.
And okay, they probably, first of all, everybody's going to ask for your best prospects, but not for J. Happ.
Right.
Okay, and if they do, that's a joke. Like, everybody knows that's not going to happen. Now, a year and a half of Jose Barrero is a different story. You look at what the Blue Jays had to give up. Now, okay, in this market, I agree, because we look at these deals. I'm trying to be fair. You look at the prospects that are given up and where they rank amongst a team like the Blue Jays, but also across Major League Baseball. for a year and a half of Jose Barrios, that was a ton they had to give up. So, that probably was, you're talking about these top 5 Cardinals prospects that we get. We don't want the Cardinals to part with them. I don't, at least. So I understand that. I don't think Jay Happ and John Lester are even in that stratosphere this year when they both have ERAs in the 5s and 6s, and they're not controllable beyond this year. They're a 2-month rental.
Look, the Blue Jays, they're in a different situation than the Cardinals. No, I would have not given up Gorman and another top prospect to get Barrios. I would not if I was a Cardinals. But the Jays are knocking on the door. The Jays also have tons of young talent already.
Position players.
Yes, where they're going, okay, we got too many young players. Sounds kind of silly to say, but they have so many young players. They need arms. They need pitching. We can go get a guy we can have for 2 years to go with what we already have. Yeah, we'll overpay a little bit to get what we need now so we can win. That's part of the trade deadline, and that's what it's all about. Cardinals, they're not there, but my goodness, they could have gotten a lot of different other options than what they had back in June. That's the way I see it.
And that's where it also it comes down to your organization, as you mentioned. If you're the Blue Jays and you have the stud juniors at every single position, which is the Vladdy Juniors of the world and Bo Bichette, and I know Kevin Biggio hasn't had a great season, but he was really good last year. And even a guy like Randall Grichuk's having a really good season. But you have really good position players. So if you have position player depth in your minor leagues that other teams want, and you say, okay, this guy's a great player. He might be a great player, but also there's not a lot of places to put him when we have 3 or 4 stud guys around the infield. They ain't going anywhere because they're all in their first or second year. Yeah, so that's where I understand where the Cardinals are at in not giving up those top 5 prospects, and I 100% agree with them. Something could have been done 2 months ago. That's all I'm saying. And we all said that.
Yep.
Right? This is not hindsight. That's where because we're on the radio every day, and we can go back, I promise you, when Miles Mikolas went down on that Saturday, it was a Fox game, I remember. When he went down, I think you could have made the case, right? It was a debate, in my opinion. It was an argument. Do the Cardinals need to get a starter? And I think it's fair to say, okay, they may get through it. Or, hey, get a starter from outside the organization. We'll see what happens. I understand that. When Flaherty went down, it was an absolute need. I don't understand how anybody could have said, no, they don't need to go outside the organization and then add KK out for 10 days on top of that. At that point, you had 60% of your starting rotation out. You needed a starting pitcher. That's not hindsight. That is not hindsight based on performance. God bless Johan Oviedo. God bless Jake Woodford. They did about what we expected. Right? Yeah. They're okay. They're fine, but they're not ready.
That's why you made the moves today, because you realize those 2 guys aren't ready. They're going to come out of the rotation, and you move on. Failed year. That's all I can say about it right now.
Right now. However, like I said, man, the Cardinals.
You think they're going to make a run? See,
100 million% they're going to make a run.
Okay.
When I say a run, as of right now, I'm not saying the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs.
Okay.
They're going to go off here in August. I know the September schedule, we've all seen it. There's 1 million games against the Brewers. So you're going to have to beat them straight up. I'm not looking at the division anymore. I'm looking at a Padres team that did not address starting pitching. They're in a great division. They got to play the Giants. They got to play the Dodgers. And they're without their superstar. That looked serious, by the way.
It did. The other thing about the Padres that isn't getting a lot of play, their starting pitching hasn't been very good.
That's
overall.
What I'm saying.
I mean, the big pickup was Snell, and he hasn't been very good.
He has not been very good. Darvish has. But even injuries, I mean, they go get Clevenger, and he's hurt for the whole year. Yeah. They've tried.
Lament is down still. He can't, they have the issues. There's no doubt. I'm not buying in on the Cardinals like you, but we'll see.
Well,
I will be happy if they do. Okay. I'll be like, oh, good. That's awesome.
I feel like we've already done this, but I have a terrible memory.
Okay.
My bet is the Oberweis, Frank Cusimano milkshake bet that we never actually pay each other on. We always say it, but nobody actually pays each other a milkshake. That's how this goes, just so people know. I don't know what the number is. I am very confident the Cardinals will be at one point this season only 3 games out of the second wild card. Now, Will they get to 2? That's my as a person who likes gambling. I think my over/under on games back. Will the Cardinals make this really interesting? I think the over/under is 2.5.
Wow.
They're gonna go off in August. I promise you. All they have to do if they
should.
How about this? I haven't looked at the Padres schedule.
Yep.
But if the Padres in just one, stretch, if they get swept or they lose 3 or 4 to a Dodgers or whoever, Giants, and the Cardinals win 3 or 4 in a row, which can happen, all of a sudden, boom, the Cardinals are 3 games out. That's going to happen. I'm not saying they make the playoffs, but the Cardinals will get real close.
Okay.
That's my take.
Okay. Real quick, since I got it. This week, at Oakland for 2, Arizona for 3, Miami for 3. This is the Padres. At Arizona for 4, at Colorado for 3.
Okay, so not soon. How about the end of August? I didn't look at their schedule.
The last week of August, 3 against the Dodgers.
There we go.
3 at the Angels, or 2 at the Angels.
Are they facing Ohtani? Ohtani hits 4 homers in the series. Okay.
3 at Arizona gets us into September.
That's a lot of Arizona.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, never mind. I take that back.
September is going to be tough for them, though.
There we go.
So, yeah.
All right. Okay. I didn't see the schedule.
No,
when they play 27 games against the Diamondbacks, that doesn't help my cause.
No, it doesn't.